So, I guess starting from the beginning, can you tell me about where your family is originally from?
Both my parents are genocide survivors. My dad was born in Sepastia, historical Armenia. It's today you'll find it on the map as Sabaz. He was born in 1905. A family of his parents, two sisters, and two brothers. Uh, his father came to America prior to the genocide, 1910, 1912, something like that. And he was going to bring his family to America. My mother was born in Trabzon. It's on the Black Sea. She's born 1910, 1911. And she was a family of twins, two sisters, and another brother. And only she and her older sister survived. Uh, and unfortunately, my mom came to America with her uncles, and her sister went to Egypt. So they never seen each other after the genocide, and and they corresponded, but they never got to see each other.
Wow.
That's the background on them. They both came to America in 1920 through Ellis Island. They met later in Watertown, Massachusetts. But my father's family, they were in the Brooklyn, Bronx area of New York. My dad was a tailor, and he used to actually make men's clothing. But later on in life, he went into dry cleaning and alterations. My dad died at almost 93 years old. And my mom was, I think, around 88 when she passed away. She, like I said, she was an orphan because she lost all of her family. But her father's two brothers brought her to America. What's rather interesting is she was placed in a Turkish home. And when her uncles came to get her, she didn't want to leave them because my mom would always say, my Turkish mother was very nice to me. And but fortunately, the uncles found her and they came to America. One of her uncles and she lived in an Armenian home where there were boarders, and they, and my father and my mother, they met in Watertown through my maternal grandmother's brother was the one that brought them together, and they tell us the story that he came to select a bride, and so there were three young ladies, and after they visited at the uncle's house, they said, "Okay, Marjorie, which one did you like?" And they picked my mom, and within a year they got married, and first settled in Bronx, New York. The elder Jendian brother had a farm in upstate New York, Utica, New York. And so they decided to go there and put all their resources together to keep this farm going. And they used to bottle their milk. There was a dairy farm and chickens. And my father said that it was a time where if you're not a part of the union, they didn't give you an opportunity to sell your products. And many times they would go to collect their bottles to fill them with milk and sell, and their bottles were broken. I mean, because of they not being a part of the union.
Wow.
But so then later during Depression, it was difficult for 5 families to be in Utica. So the older brother said, well, at least one of you stay. And yet they said, no, we came together. We're going to go back to New York. So they went back to New York. After a short while, they went and settled. My parents settled in Watertown, Mass, where they had an uncle, which was their mother's brother. His name was Eknadios Tashjan, Tashjian. Uncle Eknadios was my baptismal godfather. He died at 98 or 90 years old in Watertown. He was a shoemaker, and in Watertown, there's a street called Belmont Street. On one side of the street, it's Belmont, Mass, and on the other side of the street, it's Watertown, Mass. Well, my dad had his tailor shop and alteration shop on Belmont, and across the street, his uncle had a shoemaker's shop where they would repair shoes. We came to California in 1951. My father came to a wedding of his nephew in November, came to California, and the weather was just beautiful. So he calls my mother and he says, Mary, sell the store and sell the business and the house and bring the kids here. My mother said, you come on home, we'll talk about it. So he comes home. This is November or December of 1950. Well, we moved and arrived in California on March 1st, 1951. Wow. That older uncle had a dairy in San Gabriel, and they were large. They milked about 600 cows a day. And so he provided us a home on the farm until we see what we were going to do as a permanent job of work. And within a short time, my dad bought a cleaning establishment and alterations and cleaning at 6th and Alvarado Streets in Los Angeles. And shortly thereafter, we bought a home at 218 North Ridgewood Place in Hollywood. And I went to grammar school in outside of San Gabriel in Garvey, and but I went to 9th grade at Mark Keppel High School, And I graduated. I didn't graduate there. I then came to, since we were living in Hollywood, I transferred to Hollywood High and graduated from Hollywood High, from high school in 1956. What other information would you want from my early years?
Of course. I want to zoom in for a moment on your dad's side of the family in Armenia. Do you know what their life was like at all before the genocide, or what they did for work?
My grandfather had a general store, and they sold all kinds of home products, and for clothing, they had different types of materials because they made their own clothes. They lived in a home with another uncle and his family. So there were two Jendian families living in a home in Sepastia. And it was that uncle who, during the deportations, he was the only male survivor, other than my grandfather, who came to America in 1912. All the rest of the Jendian clan was lost. And so he was the only male, and so he looked over his brother's children and his own children, and they went to Aleppo, and after the end of the march, and that family went to Greece, whereas my father's family came to America. The relatives that went to Greece in 1947, they went to Armenia. There was a repatriation from 1945 to 1947, I think, where people repatriated to the then Soviet Armenia. And so Garabet Jendian, who from Sepastia went to Aleppo to Greece to Armenia. Then years later, when they were able to get out of the country, they went to Argentina. So we have about 40, 50 cousins that are in South America. I got to visit them about 5 years ago. We got invited for a wedding, and it was a beautiful experience. And so we correspond regularly with that cousin. By the name, you notice my name is Yeghia, my middle name. That's my grandfather's name. So my father's youngest brother insisted of having my name be Yeghia. My mother says, no, I'm not. I'll give him a second name, but he's going to have a first name. Ma says, how did you come about Allan? I mean, she says, well, I was reading a love story book, and the main character was his name was Allan, and so that's how I got my name. And as you'll notice, my name is spelled different than most. It's Allan. Now, I got off track.
That's all right. Yeah. Let's talk about, if you have any knowledge of this, what immigrating to America was like for both your dad and your mom, if that was a difficult process for them.
Well, the thing is, it was difficult for my dad, because when they left Istanbul, and they got to the ship. The steamer come to America. First let me say that they lost their mother on the road. She died of starvation. Noyemzar was her name. Her maiden name was Tashjian. And when she died on the road, the kids tried to bury their mom. And you know, how are 10, 12, 15-year-old kids, how are they going to bury? So they dug a little hole and put the dirt over it. And then the next morning they woke up and the dogs had shredded the corpse. And my dad, every time he told the story, he would be in tears. So he had that difficulty. But they got going to get on the boat, and my aunt, the oldest daughter, was thrown into the river in Turkey, so that the Turkish men wouldn't take advantage of her. Then the three brothers and a sister come to Istanbul, where their mother's two sisters were there with their families, and they stayed with them for several months. And then when they got on the boat, the baby sister Hayganush, Helen, Americanized, her eyes didn't pass the test, so she was left behind. They came to America. They had relatives that took care of them. And then my aunt arrived, and my aunt Helen, or Hayganush, when she arrived in Utica, New York, they had some friends that picked her up, and they went to Yeghia's house, and she told them, "I don't know this man." She says, "How would I? I never saw my father. So I know that's my father." So he said, "Wait 1 minute." So he goes in the other room and wakes the boys up. "Get up." He says, "Your sister is here." When she came out of the room, she was in joy. I mean, because she recognized her brothers. But they settled well. I mean, my oldest uncle, as we said, had a dairy at a farm in Utica, New York. The youngest brother, Ohanes, Mugardich is the oldest brother. And Ohanes is the baby. And he was into photo engraving. And my dad, Marjoris, was the one that had the alterations and the cleaning. As far as on my mother's side, her father, and you know, the one uncle that she lived with, I don't remember what type of work he did, but there were a lot of factories in the Boston, Merrimack Valley, and so they found work there. The oldest uncle, Johnny Gaga, Johnny, Janig, he from Armenia went back to fight with the General Antarnik. And he also was one of the founders of the Armenian Church in Watertown, Mass, St. James Armenian Church. If you look in the history book, show Janik Janazian, Janazian, my mother's maiden name. My parents had a good life. I mean, we weren't wealthy. And we thought we had everything, but we really didn't. I mean, I'm the only boy in my family. I have 3 sisters. We're all 5 years apart, approximately. And so we would ask my mom, why did you have us so late? I mean, why weren't we closer? She says, well, I thought of myself. She says, I put one in school and I then have another one that I could enjoy and love, put that one in school and then have the next one. So all four of us were planned. And why did I go to that? So Johnny Gara and his wife were actually like our grandparents.
Oh, wow.
Because we had no grandparents. I didn't get to see my paternal because he died young, and my maternal grandfather died in the massacres. So Johnny and his wife Altun were like grandparents.
Wow.
To us. She, you know, we just had Easter about a month ago, and every Holy Week, I have fond memories, just flashbacks, because she insisted that I go to church and have my feet washed during the foot washing ceremonies on Good Thursday.
Wow.
And so whoever got there first would get a robe. Otherwise, and then once they have 12 robed, then so I think of her every Holy Week. I mean, and I don't know. Okay, that's in California. What should I say about California? I went to.
Yes.
I went to. I graduated from Hollywood High in 1956, and when I got out of school, the church, St. James Armenian Church in Los Angeles, the priest approached me and said, we would like you to come and be the church secretary. So that's where I went when I graduated. I mean, if it wasn't for my wife, I guess I wouldn't have finished college, and I might have still been at St. James. During those years in Watertown, Mass. No, not Watertown. In Hollywood, San Gabriel. Then we go to Hollywood. Okay. In Hollywood, I finished out my 9th grade, and then went to Hollywood High, and I can't think of the name right now. There's a movie star that went to school with me.
Oh, wow.
It'll come to me. You know, I just had an 88th birthday, so it might slip. But I went to City College first, LA City College. And I didn't graduate from there. I went into the Army, and I joined the reserves. And so I had 6 months active duty in Fort Ord, Washington, Fort Ord, California, up in Northern California. And then after that, I had reserve time that I had to when I graduated, I took a couple of classes in Los Angeles State College, and my field was accounting. I was bookkeeping at the time, and I got married, and no, before getting married, I was very active in the Armenian Church Youth Organization, ACYO. Mm-hmm. I held every position on, wow. And I got elected to the Central Council of the ACYO. And if you go back into the historical records, I held the longest period of, I think, 10 terms. Wow. On the Central Council. My father played the instrument oud, O-U-D. And so I naturally picked that up too. But I took violin lessons when I was young in grammar school. And I could go into all kinds of stories there. But so with that background, I joined a group of young men, and we called ourselves the Barites, B-A-R-R-I-T-E-S hyphen. And so I played all the instruments with them. My main instrument was violin, dumbek, the hand drum, oud, and the canon, the 72-string lap instrument. And so I was with them in the 50s, because I got married in 1962 and settled in Fresno. My wife was born here. Her grandfather, actually, her maternal grandfather, was a citizen in 1896. Wow. So, and they had a large family here, Antronikian and Misakian families. And so I felt this would be a good place to raise a family. So we went on our honeymoon in August 4, 1962. And so for 2 weeks we toured the states and of the Western Hemisphere, and we went to LA because one of our Barites musicians, Jim Haboyan, Haboian, was married to Carolyn Hagopian, Richard Hagopian's sister. Wow. Well, Richard and I were like brothers. Wow. And so whenever I'd come to Fresno, I would stay with them. And whenever we had a band job, we would come down and stop at Richard's first, and then we'd go to Fresno. So it ended up where Jim proposed to Carolyn, which is Richard's sister. And so I went to school at night, and I was working for Bourbon Carpets as a junior accountant. And here I could see what people were making, and I'm saying, here's these people, there's people that were working there that had college degrees making less than I was. So I told Rosemary, I said, you know what? They're not offering all the classes I need in the evening. I need to go back during the day. Fortunately, when we came back from honeymoon, in the mailbox was a letter where she was accepted they gave her an offer to teach in Fresno Unified School District. At that time, it was $5,000 starting pay. But we survived, and and so then I went on to school after I graduated in 1967. I graduated from Fresno High with an accounting degree, and I had interviewed with the Internal Revenue Service and was given an offer to work for them. What's rather interesting is the first interview was at Fresno State. And they said, if you're interested, we'll give you a second interview. So I went to the second interview. And during the second interview is when they made me the offer. And I said, well, I can't accept a position that's paying less than $5,000 because that's what my wife is making, because we would like to start a family. So they gave me the step that they gave me was equivalent to that of beginning salary. So and I lasted with them for 37 years.
Wow.
I think my temperament and how I dealt with people, because as an agent, we went out into the field. We would either go to the taxpayer's home or place of business or their CPA to do the investigation, but I would treat people like I would want to be treated, and also you talk to people above board. You know, you don't have a grudge against anybody or devious. I mean, unfortunately, some of IRS employees I'm not proud of saying that I work with them, because they were conniving and just to make a name for themselves. Our family, Rosemary and I, are blessed with three children: Matthew, Ari, and Micah Antron, and Megan Amber. And we joke that on our luggage we have MAJ. That way we have one set of luggage we all use.
Wow.
Rosemary was an educator in Fresno Unified School District. And I mentioned the three children that we had. And Matthew is a professor of sociology at Fresno State. And Micah is a professor of English at Grossmont College in San Diego. And Megan works for a company that deals with problematic individuals, and she's actually overqualified for the position, but she fits it well. I don't know where else. I did say I was active in church back then. So I turned 88 years old. I was 8 years old when I first held candles.
Wow.
So I've served on the altar for 80 years.
That's amazing.
And I'm a deacon, ordained deacon of the church, because of my years of service and being seniority. I'm actually an archdeacon, but we don't use the title that much. We're all equivalent with each other, I mean. So I've been very active in the Armenian Church of the Western Diocese, serving on the diocesan council. I've been on at least 6 terms, and I served 1 term as a chairman of the council. In the parish, I've served on every committee that you have. For 30 years, when I moved to Fresno, Richard Hagopin had me join him. So for 30 years, I played with him, and we entertained families, their weddings, baptisms. I mean, even at cemeteries, we played. We even went to Sacramento when George Deukmedjian got elected.
Wow.
And we played for a reception there. So I got a lot of fond memories. I mean, when you're involved with the church, it branches out into a lot of other things. Like now, here I am in Conservancy. I'm a member of the Knights of Artan, serving 50 plus years. Have been a past commander, was a grand chaplain, and have visited 27 lodges throughout the country. So I got fond memories of all that.
Wow.
Where do I stop?
I was wondering.
Sorry to bore you people.
It is. I was wondering if we could talk a bit more about Fresno, and if you could tell me what your initial years here were like in the Armenian community.
When I came, we got married in '62, and right away, naturally, I started serving at St. Paul. And with the church, things started growing, and relationships, and I became a member of the AGBU, the Tekeyan Armenian Cultural Organization, the Armenian Assembly.
Wow.
I mean, the Assembly, I was a founding member of the Fresno region, and then became the chairman of the Western District. When I first came, our community, I have to say, everyone was in island off by themselves. But on the 50th anniversary of the genocide, the community came together, and I was pleased that I had some part of it, where we had all the churches working together, the different organizations within the church. I served 15 years as chairman of the United Armenian Commemorative Committee that held observances every April 24th. And during the week, we would have Armenian Heritage Week, and we had committees that would set up programs. We invited the different church schools to come. We had two marches that we had in Fresno, and I was part of each of them, where we went from downtown to march to City Hall. Let me think. I'm trying to think what else. So, give me a hint.
Could you tell me more about what the Armenian Assembly did?
The Armenian Assembly was a group that was founded in, I don't have the exact date, early 60s. And it's a national organization with headquarters in Washington, D.C. And they are, pro-Armenia, and to try to influence governmental people to recognize the genocide. I mean, I remember when they worked with Tip O'Neill Chipushayan, oh, oh man, I can't remember, but with several different congressmen that we dealt with. And so from the outflow, I served on the national board 2 terms, and served on the assembly was the parent to the United Armenian Commemorative, because under that we use the assembly as an umbrella for tax deduction of donations. But we in Central California had formed the United Armenian Commemorative Committee. Our first chairman was Judge Mardikian, Robert Mardikian. He served 2 years and then passed the torch on to me, and I stayed on about 15 years. Wow. We had wonderful participation with educators. I mean, my brother-in-law, Seth Atamian, was the first Armenian principal in Fresno Unified School District in 1967. Now, he and other educators were on our education committee, and we prepared little booklets to be used in the Fresno Unified, one on Saroyan, one on Sahagan Mesro, the founding of the Armenian alphabet, and David of Sassoon. Matter of fact, you know, the Armenian Community School that we have today, I served on a committee when they first founded. Wow. Some 50 years ago. So you know, when you're in one committee organization, you can't help but join others, because it takes 2 hands to clap, and so you need everyone's participation.
Yeah. You mentioned that on the 50th anniversary of the genocide, there was something very beautiful. A lot of people of the Armenian community came together. I was wondering, maybe in a similar vein, what your hopes for the future of the Fresno Armenian community were and are.
For the future, the thing is, you know, we're a community of, I think our history is about 100 years. And this is one reason why these ladies and I and Vaughn and others have joined to come up with a place where we could gather historical documents about our ancestors. I mean, other nationalities have it, but Fresno doesn't. And so my hope is that we're able to get the Vartanian home, and that could be our headquarters, and build on that. But I mean, even today, the galleries that Vaughn and Mary have put together, I mean, there's something to share with the community. But unfortunately, we're not getting the support that we really think we should be getting. But, you know, unified, you get a lot done. And so that's been my, shall I say, gift to the community, is by bringing people together. And we hope that through something like this, we get others that are interested.
Yeah. Thank you. And
go ahead.
I was wondering, you could tell me what preserving Armenian identity means to you.
Preserving preserving identity, the language, the music, the art. I mean, you can't let this, I mean, that's what has been built into us. I mean, we have a lot of fine Armenian individuals born of Armenian descent. It doesn't matter that they don't speak the language or they don't read the language. It's the spirit that counts. And you know, they've tried to wipe us off the map, but we're still there. And I mean, even during the Soviet times, even though we didn't believe in the regime, but it kept the culture alive. And that brings me to a point that I forgot altogether in all of my discussion. I had the privilege of witnessing William Saroyan's last will. And because of that, he wanted half of his ashes to be buried in Fresno and half in Armenia. So the foundation was thinking about fulfilling that. Since he was cremated, we put the ashes in 2 different urns. Well, the Armenian Writers Union and the Armenian Armenian Relations of the Diaspora Committee, they wanted the ashes to be there by the first anniversary of his passing. They named 3 people to carry the ashes to Armenia. Robert Demir, the attorney, William Saroyan's attorney, and Professor Dikran Kuyumjan and myself. And then joining our group appointed from Armenia was Orshin Keshishan of the Armenian Observer. So we carried Saroyan's ashes to Armenia, and so that's a distinction that I was very honored to have. What's rather interesting, the board, when they selected us, they said, you could go, but you need to pay your own expenses. But to me, that it didn't matter. And that was the first time that I went to Armenia, and I've been to Armenia 5 times.
Wow. When was that?
God, you caught me off guard. Who could help me? When did Saroyan pass away?
May 18th, 1981. 1981.
Okay, that's when we took the ashes.
Wow.
Right? He was buried in Gomidas Park in the Pantheon in Yerevan, where there's other artists that are buried there, poets and such.
Okay, I want to end on one final note. Well, it's a big question still. Can you tell me what being Armenian means to you?
What?
Can you tell me what being Armenian means to you?
That's a good question. I never thought of it that way. Well, I mean, I have nothing against other nationalities, but all of my closest friends are Armenian. I mean, we have that blood in us, and we're bonded together. And I think being together, working together, having joyful times. I mean, I have to give that some further thought for another occasion.